At the family business meeting, my chair was labeled Freeloader, and everyone rolled their eyes. Still living off Dad's success? My uncle scoffed. Minutes passed. I pulled out a thick envelope. They didn't know the deal I'd closed last night was worth $2.7 million. I was already dreading the meeting before I even walked into the room. It was pouring outside, the kind of slow, annoying drizzle that somehow gets under your coat no matter how tight you've got it pulled. My boots left wet marks on the lobby floor, and I could feel the receptionist at the front desk eyeing me with that same look she always gave, like I was tracking mud into her perfect little world. I didn't belong here anymore. Not in this building, not in this family. But I showed up anyway, because despite everything, my name was still on 25% of the company. And when you own a piece of something, especially something your father built, you don't just walk away, no matter how tempting it is. The elevator dinged. Top floor. Conference room to the left. They were already inside when I arrived, of course. Early birds. Or maybe they just wanted to start without me, so they could have a few laughs before I got there. When I opened the door, everyone turned and looked at me like I was a delivery guy who'd walked into the wrong meeting. Wow, Brett said, checking his watch. Only 11 minutes late. That's gotta be a record. I ignored him. The room looked the same as it always had. Mahogany table that seats 10 high-backed leather chairs. Big window facing the city skyline. It was supposed to feel impressive, but to me it felt like a tomb. A cold, stiff echo of something that used to be alive. Then I saw the chair. Third one from the end. My usual spot. Stuck right on the backrest, with crooked corners like someone slapped it on in a hurry, was a yellow sticky note. One word. Freeloader. Nice. I stood there for a moment. My eyes scanned the table. Barry was sipping his black coffee like he hadn't done a damn thing. Joelle was checking her tablet, pretending to be too busy to notice. Brett, of course, was grinning like a third grader who just farted in class and got away with it. Tessa at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. I walked over, pulled the chair out, and sat down. I didn't remove the note. Let it stay. Let them get a good long look at the man they thought was living off his father's coattails. So glad you could grace us with your presence, Barry said, setting his mug down with a loud clunk. Big night out, was it? Just working late, I said casually. He raised an eyebrow. Right. Brett laughed under his breath. All right, Joelle cut in, tapping her screen. Let's get started. We've already been through most of the financials, but we saved the fun stuff for last. Namely, how we're going to keep this ship from sinking. You mean the same ship you've been steering straight into a rock? I asked. Barry's face tightened. We've had a couple rough quarters. That happens. We're adapting. You're reacting, I said. Big difference. The room went quiet. Joelle cleared her throat. Can we stick to the agenda? I leaned back in the chair. It creaked slightly. Sure. But I've got something to bring to the table too. Oh. Barry's tone was like a hammer on a nail. Did someone finally reply to your Craigslist ad? Brett laughed again. I didn't even look at him. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thick envelope. Cream-colored. My name on the front. Inside, 17 pages of contracts, agreements, and projections. I laid it on the table like I was dealing a hand of cards. I closed a deal last night, I said. With Lantech Systems. They're launching a new cloud-based security product and need a partner to handle backend support, integrations, and long-term infrastructure. I pitched them to us. Joelle looked up. You what? They loved the name. The legacy. The story of Roll-On Tech. I let my eyes rest on Barry for a beat. The deal's worth $2.7 million over the next 18 months. No one spoke. Barry blinked first. This is a joke. It's real. Signed last night at 11:47 p.m. I can forward the timestamped digital signature if you'd like. Tessa leaned forward. You used the company name? They think we're handling it. I told them I'd manage it personally. But they believe in Roll-On. They're not looking for a vendor. They want a partner. Brett looked skeptical. Why would they trust you? Because I listened when they said they didn't want to be treated like another invoice. I showed them a path forward. Barry pushed his chair back hard. This is completely out of line. You don't just go out and sign clients without going through the board. You mean the same board that couldn't close a single deal last quarter? I said. I brought business. Revenue. You want to toss that out because your ego's bruised. He stood. We vote on major accounts. That's how it works. Fine, I said. Let's vote. The room exploded. Everyone is talking over each other. Joelle trying to regain control. Brett pulled out his phone and pretended to read something important. Barry mutters under his breath. Tessa chewed her nails, like she always did when she was nervous. Eventually, Joelle banged her hand on the table. Enough. We'll vote. She looked at me. You'll present the proposal. If it's legit, and if it checks out, we'll move forward. I nodded. Fair. Barry shook his head. This is bull. No, Barry, Joelle said. It's business. I spent the next 20 minutes walking them through everything. Scope, timeline, deliverables. I had numbers, forecasts, testimony from the CTO of Lantec, even a signed letter of intent for Phase 2. By the end, even Joelle looked impressed. Or at least less hostile. We'll vote, she said. All in favor of accepting the Lantec partnership? Hands went up. Joel, Tessa, me. Barry slammed his hand on the table. This is insane. He goes rogue and you're rewarding him. Joelle turned to him. He brought in more revenue last night than we have all quarter. Brett looked between the two of them, then raised his hand reluctantly. I'm in. That was it. 4-1. Barry stood again, chest puffed out like a peak CK. You're making a mistake. No, I said, finally peeling the sticky note off the back of my chair and folding it neatly. You did that when you underestimated me. The vote was done, the decision made, but the air in that room felt more volatile than ever. Like someone had pulled the pin on a grenade and just set it down in the middle of the table. Barry paced near the window, arms folded tight, his jaw working like he was chewing glass. I could practically hear the gears grinding in his head. He was already planning his next move. I ignored him. Joelle stood and started gathering the paperwork. We'll need onboarding materials. A point of contact. Resources allocated. I've got it covered, I said. I've already mapped out a team structure. Just need green lights on a few hires and tools. Joelle hesitated, then nodded slowly. Email me the list by the end of the day. I gave her a slight nod back. Respect. She didn't like me, but at least she respected the results. As we started to file out, Barry muttered loud enough for everyone to hear, You think one win makes you relevant again? I stopped in the doorway. Turned around. No, Barry, I said. I think one win exposed that you haven't had one in years. I didn't wait for a response. I took the stairs down, all 6 flights. I needed to burn the adrenaline off somehow. By the time I hit the parking garage, my shirt was sticking to my back, and my hands were still clenched into fists. I unlocked my car and sat inside with the engine off, staring at the steering wheel like it was supposed to give me answers. Because here's the thing no one ever talks about when you finally start getting ahead. Winning doesn't feel good right away. It feels heavy. Like you've just shifted the weight of someone else's expectations onto your own shoulders. Now it's your problem to carry. Later that night, I met up with Lantec's CTO, Jordan Fields, at a bar in East Austin. Just the two of us. Casual. But there was business behind every sip of whiskey. You sure you're still up for this? He asked, glancing over his glass. You've got family in that company. Things are bound to get messy. They've always been messy, I said. Now I'm just finally part of the mess. Jordan smirked. As long as it doesn't affect delivery timelines. It won't, I said. If it does, I'll walk. That got his attention. You'd walk away from your family's business? I thought about it. If it means protecting what I'm building? Yeah. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. I set up a war room in the old storage office. Basically a glorified closet with barely functioning AC, but it was mine. I hired a team of 3 contractors I'd worked with before. Good people. Real pros. Quiet. Efficient. We started onboarding Lantec systems on day 1. Joelle was surprisingly cooperative. She kept things professional and didn't get in my way. I think part of her was relieved someone was finally moving the needle. But Barry? He was everywhere. Slowing things down. Accidentally canceling meeting invites. Delaying vendor payments. At one point, he sent an email to Lantec's CFO directly, trying to route future communication through his office. Jordan forwarded me the email with a 2-word note. This guy. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked into Barry's office the next morning and shut the door behind me. Are you going to keep playing games? I asked, arms crossed. Barry didn't look up from his monitor. I don't know what you're talking about. I stepped closer. You emailed Lantec. You tried to wedge your way into a deal you didn't touch. You're undermining the team. He finally looked up, a smug little half smile on his face. I'm the COO. I don't need permission to reach out to a partner. You're the COO of a company that's been bleeding clients for 2 years, I said. I bring in one deal and you try to espotage it? I'm protecting the company from surprises. I laughed. You mean from me? He stood. You've always been a problem, Theo. Always thought you were smarter than everyone else. Just because Dad handed you a piece of the company doesn't mean you earned it. I stepped in close, nose to nose. Dad didn't hand me anything. He left it to me because he trusted me. You just keep thinking that if you sit in his office long enough, you'll turn into him. But you're not him. And you never will be. His jaw clenched. You done. Almost, I said. If you interfere again, I'll take the deal elsewhere. You'd thank the company over your pride? No, I said. I'd save it from yours. By the end of that week, things came to a boil. Joelle called an emergency board meeting. She didn't say why. When we all arrived, she passed around a document, an audit. A full breakdown of expenditures over the past fiscal year. Barry had been siphoning off company funds into a consultancy firm registered under a fake name, paying for strategic guidance. That firm? Owned by an LLC tied to one of his college buddies. It was a fraud. Plain and simple. Joelle looked wrecked. Tessa wouldn't make eye contact with anyone. Brett sat there pale and sweating. Barry didn't even deny it. He just folded his arms and said, "I did what needed to be done." That's when I realized. He never saw it as stealing. He saw it as reclaiming what he thought was owed to him. The room erupted. Voices yelling over each other. Brett stormed out. Tessa followed. Joelle sat motionless. Barry looked at me like I was the one who betrayed him. "You think this makes you better than me?" he spat. "No," I said quietly. "I already was." He lunged. I didn't flinch. Joelle stood up between us. "This is over," she said. "We didn't call the police. Maybe we should have." But Joelle wanted to handle it internally. Clean and quiet. Barry resigned the next morning. Public statement. Family decision. Health reasons. Whatever. Tessa sent me a text the next day. I didn't know. "I swear. I'm sorry." I didn't reply. Now it's just me and Joelle at the table. The silence is different now. Less judgment. More calculation. She's watching me, but not like I'm a threat. More like she's trying to figure out where this goes next. So am I. It's a strange thing, watching a man go down. Stranger still when it's your uncle, the one who used to take you fishing when you were 9, the one who let you have a sip of beer behind the garage at your cousin's wedding, the one who smiled just like your dad used to, before bitterness rearranged his face into something colder. Barry didn't even say goodbye. Just cleaned out his office and left the badge on Joelle's desk. No email to staff. No handshake. No dramatic monologue. Just silence. For a few days, the whole office felt like it was tiptoeing around a ghost. People spoke in hushed tones. Some tried to joke, "Guess I better not mess up or I'm next." Others just stared at me in the hallways, like they were trying to figure out how I fit into this new order. I didn't blame them. I wasn't sure either. Joelle called me into her office the next week. The door was open when I arrived, but she closed it after I stepped in. That told me this was serious. "You've made waves," she said without looking up from her laptop. I thought that was the idea. She finally looked at me. "There's talk. Some board members think we should restructure. Bring in an outside CEO." I raised an eyebrow. "You think that's a bad idea?" She shrugged. "Depends. Are you applying?" I laughed under my breath. "Wouldn't that be something?" She didn't laugh. Instead, she reached into her drawer and pulled out a manila folder. Inside were reports, client growth, land tech milestones, staffing updates. "You've outperformed projections," she said. "Which is why this is on the table." I opened the folder. On top was a draft proposal. Restructure plan. A new division. My name at the head of it. She leaned back, watching me. "You take this, you're not just a contractor. You're in. Fully. It comes with control. Budget. Staff. But it also comes with heat." I stared at the papers. "You trust me?" I asked. Joelle exhaled slowly. "I trust the results. You've delivered them." That was the closest thing to approval I was going to get from her. "All right," I said. "Let's do it." The first week as division lead was chaos. The kind of chaos I'd forgotten I used to enjoy. Emails at 5 a.m. Strategy sessions that ran late into the night. Interviewing full-time staff while also juggling 2 deliverables and chasing down a subcontractor who disappeared mid-sprint. But it felt good. Sharp. Real. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was building something that mattered. The team respected me, even if some didn't like me. I didn't ask them to like me. I just asked them to care. And they did. Lantec was happy. Jordan called me twice that month just to say thanks. That alone was more gratitude than I'd gotten from my own blood in the last 5 years. Of course, not everything was smooth. Brett started nosing around. He'd always floated between departments, never really landing anywhere, but suddenly he was checking in on project updates that had nothing to do with him. Popping into meetings uninvited. Asking people what I was working on. At first, I let it slide. Then I caught him trying to access one of my team's internal docs without permission. I confronted him in the break room. "Looking for something?" I asked, leaning against the fridge as he tapped away on his phone. He looked up, a fake smile already in place. Hey, Tao. Just grabbing a coffee. You were on our dashboard this morning." "Why?" His eyes narrowed just slightly. "Was just curious what your burn rate looks like. We're all trying to keep costs down." "That's Joelle's concern," I said. "Not yours." He shrugged, like it was no big deal. Relax. We're family. I stepped closer. Exactly why you should know better. He stared at me for a second too long, then smiled and patted my shoulder. Just don't forget who gave you this shot. I didn't say anything, but I thought you didn't give me anything. You just stopped trying to take it away long enough for me to grab it. 3 days later, my lead engineer, Carla, called me at 7:40 a.m. We have a problem, she said. What kind of problem? Security. Someone tried to pull data off the staging server at 3:12 a.m. I blinked. Staging? Why? No idea. They didn't get far. Jordan's team flagged it. Their IDS kicked it back. But it came from inside. Inside the building? No. Inside our network. From a whitelist IP. I felt my pulse thump in my throat. You sure? Pulled the logs myself. I closed my eyes. Send them to me. I'm on my way. The drive to the office felt longer than usual. The traffic, the lights, the rain all felt like background noise to a rising tide of anger in my chest. Someone inside the company had tried to compromise a 7-figure client. And whoever it was, they had enough access to think they'd get away with it. I didn't believe in coincidence. When I got to my office, the logs were already waiting in my inbox. Carla had highlighted the IP address. I cross-referenced it against the building's internal network registry. It was Brett. Of course it was. I didn't go to Joelle right away. I knew how she operated. She'd want more than logs. She'd want proof, motive, something concrete. So I waited. Over the next few days, I kept my cool. I let Brett keep smiling his empty smile, let him stroll through the office like nothing had happened. But behind the scenes, I was building a case. Carla helped quietly. So did Mark, our junior sysadmin, who dug into Brett's access logs and found a trail of breadcrumbs leading all the way back to Barry's final month in the office. Apparently, Brett had been working with his dad long before we booted Barry out. They'd set up shadow accounts, backdoors. Not just into my project, but into finance, legal, even Joelle's email at one point. They were preparing for something. I didn't know what yet, but it was big. I stood in front of Joelle's desk that Friday morning with a folder in my hand and a weight in my gut. She read through the logs quietly, mouth tight. "You're sure?" she asked. "I'd stake my shares on it," I said. She sat back. Jesus Christ. She rubbed her temples like she was fighting a migraine. Maybe she was. They were planning to take the company, I said. One way or another. I don't know if Brett's still in contact with Barry, but it wouldn't surprise me. She nodded slowly. Let me handle this. I shook my head. No, not this time. She looked at me. You've always tried to keep the peace, I said. But peace didn't build this company. My father did. With principles. With discipline. We let rot take root by avoiding confrontation. It's time we cut it out. She didn't speak, but she handed me her office keycard. The next day, I walked into the building before dawn. By 8 a.m., Brett's badge had been deactivated. By 8:15, the company-wide memo had gone out, effective immediately. Brett Rollon is no longer with the company. No explanation. No warning. Just gone. I sat in my office afterward, staring out at the skyline as the city stirred to life. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt a strange thing creeping in. Not peace. Not pride. Something sharper. More dangerous. Responsibility. The silence after Brett's departure didn't last long. It never does in places like this. By Monday morning, rumors were ricocheting through the halls like stray bullets. Some said Brett had been caught embezzling. Others whispered that I'd forced him out to take control. One of the interns swore he saw Brett leaving the building carrying a box and yelling into his phone, "I built this place." He didn't. But people love a drama, and Brett always knew how to be the center of one. Joelle and I agreed, no public explanation. Not yet. We needed to keep our hands steady on the wheel. One misstep, one poorly worded statement, and the whole place could spiral into paranoia. And yet, something had shifted. The atmosphere in the office was different now. Not tense exactly, but cautious. People spoke in lower tones. Eyes darted quicker. You could almost feel the walls listening. And I felt it most when I was alone. I stayed late that week. Most nights I didn't leave until long after everyone else had gone home. I'd sit at my desk, the lights dimmed, the city humming outside the window, and I'd try to piece it all together. What was Barry trying to build with Brett? What was the endgame? Because it wasn't just about control. Not entirely. There was something else. Something bigger than power plays and title envy. I found the first clue on Thursday afternoon. Mark, our quiet sysadmin, knocked on my door holding a USB drive. You're going to want to see this, he said. I plugged it into the secure laptop, heart thudding. It was a folder, titled Roll-on_redirect. Inside, emails, invoices, dummy contracts, cloud migration schedules, server specs, all tied to a separate company, registered in Delaware just 3 months before Barry was forced out. A shell company. One designed to mirror Roll-On Tech's offerings almost identically. Mark spoke first. It looks like they were preparing to funnel clients. Slowly, quietly, one at a time, and rebuild it under a different name, I muttered. New entity. No family oversight. No legal strings. Barry hadn't just wanted the company. He wanted a clean version of it. One where I didn't exist. I didn't go to Joelle right away. I needed time to think. Not just about what it meant for the company, but what it meant for me. Because now I was holding proof that Barry had been preparing to gut my father's legacy like a fish. And somewhere deep in that mess, I felt it, betrayal, sharp and acidic in my throat. It wasn't just business. It never had been. This was personal. That night, I drove to my mother's place on the west side. Small ranch-style house with creaky steps and the same wind chime that had hung on the porch since I was a kid. She was in the kitchen, chopping carrots for a stew, still in her gardening gloves. "You're early," she said, not turning around. I smiled faintly. "You always know." "Of course. You slam your car door when you're upset." I sat at the kitchen table and watched her work. She peeled potatoes like they'd offended her. "Have you talked to Barry?" I asked finally. She stopped, K&F hovering over the cutting board. "Not since your father's birthday," she said carefully. "Why?" I slid the folder across the table. She didn't open it. Just rested her hand on it like she already knew. "I didn't want to believe it," she said after a long silence. "Your father always said Barry had a good head, but a bad heart." I blinked. "He said that." "Not to Barry's face," she said, finally opening the folder. "But yes, he saw it. He just thought family mattered more." She flipped through the documents without flinching, then looked up at me with tired eyes. "You can't let this fester, Theo. If you do nothing, it grows. Like mold. And if you go after him recklessly, it'll kill you." I didn't know what to say. "Your father built this company for all of us," she continued. "But I think deep down he built it for you. He just didn't know how to say it." I left her house with the weight of that last sentence pressing into my spine like a stone, and I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I asked Joelle to meet me in the glass conference room. Just the two of us. I laid out the folder, explained what Mark had found. The shell company, the timing, the trail back to Barry. She didn't interrupt once. When I was done, she leaned forward. "You want to expose him?" I nodded. "Not just to us. To everyone. Board, staff, clients. They deserve to know who he really is." "And what do you think that'll do to this place?" "Worse than what he already did?" I asked. "Joelle, he tried to hollow us out from the inside. He used his own son as a pawn." Her face was unreadable. Then, after a beat, she nodded slowly. "I'll back you. But you need to do it clean. No emotion. No theatrics. We don't torch the building to kill all the termites." I spent the weekend preparing. Every email was cataloged. Every doc is verified. Legal reviewed it all. We built a case that was airtight. Monday morning, I scheduled a mandatory all-hands. The entire company packed into the main auditorium. Some stood at the back. Murmurs spread as people saw me step up to the podium instead of Joelle. I didn't start with the scene doll. I started with my father. What he believed in. What he built. Why Roll-On Tech was never supposed to be just a job, but a promise that hard work, decency, and purpose could still exist in the business world. Then I told them what Barry tried to do. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't attack. I showed them. The shell company. The false contracts. The plans to move accounts under the table. And when I was done, I said just one thing. "This is not who we are." They gave me a standing ovation. But all I felt was cold. Because standing there, in front of a company I was starting to lead, I realized something. The war wasn't over. Not yet. Because Barry was still out there. And people like him don't stay quiet for long. 3 days after the company-wide presentation, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it ring once. Twice. Thought about ignoring it. Then I answered. "Theo," the voice said. "You really went all in, huh?" It was Barry. I didn't say anything. "I gotta admit," he continued, "I didn't think you had the stones." "You never thought much of me, Barry," I said flatly. "That's why you lost." There was a pause. Then he chuckled. "You think this is over?" I leaned back in my chair. "I know it is. You embarrassed me. You embarrassed your family. You think the board's going to keep you on after all that." "I don't care if they do," I replied. "You were trying to replace something you never built." All I did was show them the truth. I was saving the company. "No," I said. "You were saving yourself." The line went quiet. Then click. That was the last time we spoke. I thought exposing Barry would be the final chapter. But endings are rarely that neat. The board met again 2 weeks later to discuss restructuring, and Joelle nominated me for CEO. I laughed out loud when she told me. Me, I said. After all the crap they said about me? They've seen what happens when you lead, she replied. They may not like it, but they respect it. Still, I said no. Not because I didn't want it, but because I didn't want that version of it. A desk. A title. A leash. What I wanted was impact. So I offered a counterproposal. We spin off a new division. My division. A standalone company under the Roll-On umbrella. I'd take Landtech and the other new clients with me. We'd keep the Roll-On name, but build something faster, leaner, modern. No legacy anchors. No ghosts. They agreed. And that's when I got my revenge. Not through public humiliation or lawsuits or some petty espotage, but by building something better. 3 months later, the new division launched. We called it our 3 Technologies, Roll-On's 3rd generation. Jordan from Landtech became our first advisory partner. Carla joined full-time as head of engineering. Mark ran security. We picked up 2 new clients by the end of Q2. Our office was modest, a converted warehouse with exposed brick and questionable plumbing. But it had soul. It had energy. And it was ours. Word got around fast. Other companies, clients who had drifted from Roll-On over the years, started reaching out. Not because we chased them, but because they saw something in what we were doing. Something honest. Joelle visited once, 6 months in. She looked around the space, the whiteboards covered in scrawls, the standing desks, the team laughing over bad coffee. You know, she said quietly, your dad would have loved this. I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded. Thanks, I said. I think so too. As for Barry, last I heard, he was consulting in Tampa, trying to sell mid-tier security systems to hospitals. Not illegal, but definitely less glamorous than what he'd planned. Brett never resurfaced. Tessa sent me a long email 6 months after everything went down. She apologized, said she'd never been looped into what Barry and Brett were planning, and that watching it unfold had made her rethink a lot of things. She moved to Oregon. Started a nonprofit that teaches underprivileged teens how to code. She's the only one I still talk to. It's funny how revenge looks different when you're older. When I was younger, I thought it meant making people pay. Now, I think it means making sure they know they lost. Not with fists, but with success. With happiness. With peace. Because here's the thing Barry never understood. I didn't need to beat him at his game. I just needed to stop playing it and build something better on my own terms. And I did. I'm not a freeloader. I never was. I was just waiting for the right moment to remind them all whose name was on the building. And now they'll never forget.